Michael Carter was the kind of person whose passion for art could fill a room, even when he was silent. Ever since he was a boy, growing up in a small, predominantly black neighborhood on the outskirts of Chicago, Michael had a gift for transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. Whether it was sketching street scenes or painting vibrant depictions of his community, his work always carried a raw, emotional truth that resonated deeply with anyone who gave it the time it deserved. But talent, as Michael had learned the hard way, was not always enough to succeed in a world that often judged people by appearances and assumptions. Michael's days were a blur of hustle and hard work. He spent his mornings as a barista in a local coffee shop, pouring lattes with the same precision he applied to his brushstrokes. In the afternoons, he worked as a delivery driver, weaving through traffic with canvases stacked in the back of his car, hoping to squeeze in a few moments to brainstorm his next masterpiece. By night, Michael transformed his tiny studio apartment into an art sanctuary, his hands covered in paint as he brought his ideas to life. His walls were lined with pieces that ranged from bold abstract works to intricate portraits, each one a testament to his creative vision and dedication. But despite his talent, the art world seemed determined to keep its doors shut. Michael had lost count of the number of gallery submissions he had sent out, only to receive curt rejections, or, worse, no response at all. He knew part of the problem was the inherent bias in the industry. Many gallery owners couldn't see past the color of his skin or his modest appearance to recognize the brilliance of his art. They wanted a certain look from their artists, a polished facade that Michael, with his second-hand suits and calloused hands, didn't fit. One day, fueled by equal parts hope and desperation, Michael decided to visit the prestigious Beaumont Gallery in downtown Chicago. The gallery was an institution in the art world, known for launching the careers of numerous celebrated artists. It was owned by Charles Beaumont, a man whose reputation as an art connoisseur was rivaled only by his reputation as a snob. Michael spent hours preparing for the visit. He selected 5 of his best pieces, carefully packed them into his car, and rehearsed his pitch in front of the mirror until he felt confident. "This is it," he told himself. "This could be my chance." The gallery was as intimidating as Michael had imagined. Gleaming marble floors, walls adorned with minimalist sculptures and high-end paintings, and an air of exclusivity that seemed almost suffocating. Michael stepped inside, clutching his portfolio, and approached the reception desk. A young woman with a practiced smile looked him over, her expression faltering slightly when she noticed his worn shoes and the calloused hands gripping his case. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone neutral but distant. "I'm Michael Carter," he said, forcing a smile. "I'm an artist, and I was hoping to speak with Mr. Beaumont about showcasing some of my work here." The receptionist's smile tightened. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Michael admitted. "But I think if Mr. Beaumont sees my work, he'll—" Before he could finish, a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit strode into the room. It was Charles Beaumont himself, his sharp eyes sweeping over Michael with a mix of curiosity and disdain. "What's this about?" Beaumont asked, his voice clipped. Michael extended his hand, but Beaumont ignored it. Undeterred, Michael launched into his pitch, his words tumbling out in an earnest rush as he described his passion, his journey, and his vision as an artist. He opened his portfolio, revealing a series of stunning paintings that captured the vibrancy of urban life, the struggles and joys of his community, and the depth of human emotion. For a moment, Beaumont seemed to study the pieces. But then he scoffed, a sharp, dismissive sound that cut through Michael's hope like a knife. "This is pedestrian," Beaumont said, waving a hand as if brushing away an insect. "We cater to a more refined clientele here. Our artists have pedigree, recognition. You might do better at one of those street fairs." The words hit Michael like a slap. His chest tightened, and his face burned with humiliation, but he refused to let Beaumont see how deeply he had been hurt. Gathering his composure, he closed his portfolio and stood tall. "Thank you for your time," Michael said, his voice steady, despite the storm raging inside him. As he walked out of the gallery, he could feel the weight of every rejection he'd ever faced pressing down on him. But instead of succumbing to despair, Michael made a decision. He was done waiting for validation from people like Beaumont. If the traditional art world wouldn't accept him, he would find his own way to share his work with the world. That night, Michael set up an online presence for his art, creating accounts on social media platforms and building a website to showcase his pieces. He started documenting his creative process, sharing not just the finished works, but also the stories and emotions behind them. Slowly but surely, people began to notice. Comments and messages of support trickled in, then poured in. Each one was a reminder that his art did matter, that it resonated with people in ways Beaumont could never understand. Michael worked harder than ever, pouring his soul into every piece and using his online platforms to connect with art lovers from all walks of life. He collaborated with local businesses, painted murals in his neighborhood, and even donated some of his work to community centers and schools. And as his following grew, so did his determination to prove that talent and authenticity could break through even the toughest barriers. Though the sting of Beaumont's dismissal lingered, it no longer defined Michael. Instead, it became fuel for his journey, a reminder of why he had to keep going, not just for himself but for every artist who had ever been told they didn't belong. Michael Carter woke up one morning to a flood of notifications on his phone. His social media accounts were buzzing with messages, comments, and follows from strangers. At first, he thought it was a glitch, but as he scrolled through the posts, he found the source of the sudden attention. A prominent celebrity, Jasmine Monroe, a Grammy-winning singer and advocate for Black artists, had discovered his work online. She had shared one of his paintings on her Twitter account with a caption that read, "This is what art looks like when it speaks to your soul. Michael Carter, your work is incredible. Everyone, go follow him now." Michael stared at the screen, his heart racing. Jasmine had millions of followers, and her tweet had already been liked and shared thousands of times. As the realization sank in, his emotions swung between disbelief and excitement. His years of struggle, rejection, and persistence had led to this moment, a breakthrough. Discovery online. The next few days were a whirlwind. Orders for Michael's paintings started pouring in through his website, and his inbox was flooded with inquiries from art enthusiasts and collectors who wanted to know more about him. Media outlets picked up on Jasmine's tweet, writing articles about the unknown artist with an extraordinary voice. Michael worked tirelessly to keep up with the demand. He packed and shipped paintings late into the night, responded to messages, and documented the process on his social media. He shared videos of himself painting, clips of him talking about the inspiration behind his work, and snapshots of his small, paint-splattered studio. What resonated with his growing audience wasn't just the beauty of his art, it was his story. People admired his authenticity, his grit, and the way his work reflected the struggles and triumphs of his community. His vibrant depictions of Black joy, resilience, and culture struck a chord with viewers from all walks of life. Breaking barriers. As Michael's popularity grew, so did the obstacles. Some critics dismissed his success as a social media fad, while others accused him of exploiting his background to gain sympathy. But Michael refused to let the negativity derail him. Instead, he focused on his supporters, fans who saw his work for what it truly was, a celebration of life and identity. More significant challenges arose when traditional art institutions started taking notice. A few galleries, perhaps sensing the financial opportunity, reached out with offers to showcase his work. Michael quickly realized that many of these offers came with strings attached. They wanted to shape his narrative, present him as a rags-to-riches story that fit their mold, and claim credit for his success. Michael turned them down. He wasn't interested in being someone else's token or project. He wanted to stay true to himself, to control his art and his story on his terms. This decision earned him even more respect from his followers and peers, solidifying his reputation as a trailblazer in the art world. By now, Michael's paintings were selling for tens of thousands of dollars each. Collectors from around the globe, Tokyo, Paris, Lagos, and beyond, were bidding on his pieces. His work was featured in virtual galleries, and his prints were selling faster than he could restock them. For the first time in his life, Michael didn't have to worry about how to pay rent or where his next meal would come from. National recognition. The momentum didn't stop there. Within months, Michael's name became synonymous with a new wave of contemporary art. He was invited to appear on morning shows, participate in panel discussions, and contribute to art magazines. His story was covered by the New York Times, Art in America, and Time, with headlines praising him as a revolutionary voice in the art world. One of the most defining moments came when he was invited to speak at a prestigious art symposium in New York. Standing on stage in front of an audience of critics, artists, and collectors, Michael shared his journey, from being dismissed by gatekeepers like Charles Beaumont to finding success on his terms. He spoke with raw honesty about the racial barriers he had faced and the importance of creating space for diverse voices in the art world. The audience gave him a standing ovation. Michael's words and presence were a testament to how far he had come and how much further he intended to go. The return. With his success cemented, Michael decided it was time to confront a lingering piece of his past, the Beaumont Gallery. It wasn't about revenge or validation, it was about closure. Michael wanted to walk into that space, not as the struggling artist who had been mocked, but as the confident, successful man he had become. The day he returned to the gallery, Michael was dressed in a tailored suit, a stark contrast to the worn clothes he had worn during his first visit. Accompanying him were two assistants, each carrying portfolios filled with his latest work, and a high-profile art dealer who had become one of his closest allies. As he entered, the same marble floors and minimalist walls greeted him, but this time, the weight of intimidation was gone. The receptionist, who had once dismissed him with a practiced smile, looked at him with wide eyes, recognizing him immediately. "Mr. Carter," she stammered. "Welcome. I'll let Mr. Beaumont know you're here." Michael nodded, his face calm and unreadable. Moments later, Charles Beaumont appeared, looking as polished as ever, but his confident demeanor faltered when he saw Michael. "Mr. Carter," Beaumont said, forcing a smile. "What a surprise." "I thought it was time I paid you a visit," Michael said evenly. "I'm here to discuss a potential acquisition." "Acquisition?" Beaumont echoed, his confusion evident. "Yes," Michael said, his tone deliberate. "I'm interested in buying the gallery." The words hung in the air, heavy with significance. Beaumont's eyes widened, and for a moment, he was at a loss for words. The man who had once dismissed Michael as pedestrian was now faced with the reality of his success, and the possibility of losing his own empire to him. Michael's assistants laid the portfolios on a nearby table, opening them to reveal a series of breathtaking new paintings. Beaumont stared at the work, his expression unreadable. But Michael didn't need his approval anymore. He had already won. "I'll give you time to think about it," Michael said, turning to leave. "But let me be clear, whether or not you sell, the art world is changing. And I'm just getting started." As Michael walked out of the gallery, he felt a sense of peace. This wasn't just about proving himself to Beaumont, it was about showing the world that success didn't require permission from gatekeepers. It was about blazing his own trail and opening doors for others to follow. And Michael was more than ready to do just that. The sun shone brightly over downtown Chicago, casting a warm glow over the bustling streets as Michael Carter stepped out of his car in front of the Beaumont Gallery. Gone were the days of second-hand suits and anxious presentations. Now, Michael stood tall, exuding confidence in a custom-tailored ensemble that spoke volumes about how far he had come. His rise to fame was no longer a whisper among art enthusiasts, it was a shout echoing across the globe. And today, he was walking into the gallery that had once rejected him, not as an artist seeking approval, but as a man on a mission. Behind him, a small entourage followed. Among them were a high-profile art dealer, an award-winning curator, and a prominent journalist. Each of them was there for a different reason, but they all shared a common interest in witnessing the moment Michael confronted the institution that had tried to diminish him. The gallery looked the same as it had the first time Michael visited. Gleaming floors, minimalist displays, and an air of exclusivity that seemed designed to intimidate. But Michael felt none of the trepidation that had gripped him on his first visit. Instead, he walked through the doors with purpose, his every step measured and deliberate. Michael's arrival. The receptionist, the same one who had once dismissed him with a perfunctory smile, froze when she saw him. Her eyes widened, darting from Michael to the well-dressed entourage behind him. She fumbled for words, her polished demeanor cracking under the weight of recognition. "Good afternoon," Michael said, his voice calm and commanding. "I'm here to see Mr. Beaumont." The receptionist stammered. Do you have an appointment?" "No," Michael said, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "But I think he'll want to see me." Before she could respond, the doors to Beaumont's office opened, and the man himself emerged, his expression one of practiced politeness. Charles Beaumont looked much the same as he had the last time Michael saw him, immaculately dressed, his posture rigid with the air of someone accustomed to being in control. But as his eyes landed on Michael, a flicker of confusion crossed his face. "Mr. Carter," Beaumont said, hesitantly extending his hand. "It's been some time." Michael accepted the handshake, his grip firm. "It has." Beaumont's eyes shifted to the entourage behind Michael, lingering on the journalist and the curator. Recognition dawned slowly, followed by a subtle tightening of his jaw. He was beginning to realize this wasn't a casual visit. Beaumont's reaction. As Michael and his entourage entered the gallery's main space, Beaumont struggled to regain his composure. His sharp eyes scanned Michael, noting the impeccable suit, the air of authority, and the unmistakable confidence that radiated from him. It was a far cry from the young artist who had once stood in this very spot, nervously clutching his portfolio. "So," Beaumont said, forcing a smile, "to what do I owe the pleasure of your visit?" Michael gestured toward the walls adorned with carefully curated pieces. "I've been thinking a lot about this place. It has potential." Beaumont frowned slightly. "Potential?" Michael turned to face him fully, his expression calm but pointed. "Yes. Potential to be something more than what it is now. A place where art isn't confined by outdated notions of pedigree and privilege. A place where talent, vision, and authenticity take precedence over connections and appearances." Beaumont's smile faltered. "I assure you, Mr. Carter, the Beaumont Gallery has always been committed to excellence." "Excellence," Michael repeated, his tone carrying a hint of irony. "Tell me, Charles, do you remember the last time we met?" Beaumont's face tightened, the memory clearly surfacing. He hesitated before responding. "I can't say I do." "Let me refresh your memory," Michael said, his voice steady. "I came here years ago, portfolio in hand, hoping for an opportunity. You told me my work was pedestrian. That I should try selling at street fairs." The color drained slightly from Beaumont's face. He opened his mouth to respond, but Michael held up a hand to stop him. "I'm not here to rehash the past," Michael continued. "I'm here to make an offer." Power shift. Beaumont blinked, his confusion giving way to suspicion. "An offer?" "Yes," Michael said, his voice ringing with confidence. "I'm here to buy the gallery." The room fell silent. Beaumont's staff, who had gathered nearby, exchanged stunned glances. Beaumont himself looked as though he had been struck. He stared at Michael, his composure unraveling as the weight of the statement sank in. "You want to buy the gallery?" Beaumont said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "I do," Michael said. "And I think you'll find my offer is more than generous." Beaumont sputtered, struggling to regain control of the conversation. "Mr. Carter, this gallery has been in my family for generations. It's not something I would sell lightly." Michael's gaze remained steady. "I understand. But I also know that times are changing. The art world is evolving, and so are its audiences. This gallery has the chance to be part of that change, or to get left behind." The weight of Michael's words hung in the air. Beaumont's expression shifted from disbelief to calculation as he realized the position he was in. Michael wasn't just an artist, he was a force to be reckoned with, backed by influence, resources, and an undeniable reputation. Poetic justice. For a moment, Beaumont seemed to consider arguing, but then his eyes landed on the journalist, who was taking notes, and the curator, who was studying the gallery with a critical eye. The presence of these influential figures wasn't lost on him. Any misstep could result in a very public scandal. Beaumont sighed, his shoulders sagging slightly. "Let's discuss this in my office." Michael nodded, gesturing for his entourage to wait as he followed Beaumont into the room. The negotiation was swift but pointed. Michael outlined his vision for the gallery, emphasizing its potential to become a hub for underrepresented artists and a beacon of inclusivity in the art world. Beaumont, backed into a corner, could do little but concede. When they emerged, Beaumont's expression was tight, but Michael's was one of quiet triumph. He turned to his entourage, addressing the curator and journalist. "Change is coming," Michael said, his voice carrying the weight of the moment. "And it starts here." As the group exited the gallery, Michael couldn't help but feel a deep sense of satisfaction. He hadn't just proven his worth to Beaumont, he had taken control of a space that once symbolized rejection and turned it into an opportunity for transformation. It wasn't about revenge. It was about rewriting the narrative, not just for himself, but for every artist who had ever been dismissed, overlooked, or underestimated. Michael Carter had arrived, and the art world would never be the same. The newly renamed Carter Gallery of Vision and Diversity opened its doors on a crisp Saturday morning to a crowd that wrapped around the block. The once exclusive Beaumont Gallery had been transformed, inside and out, to reflect a fresh ethos of inclusivity, creativity, and community. Gone were the stark white walls and cold, minimalist decor. In their place were vibrant murals, warm lighting, and curated pieces from artists representing a kaleidoscope of cultures, perspectives, and stories. Michael Carter stood at the entrance, greeting visitors as they streamed in. His tailored suit and calm demeanor exuded confidence, but his eyes sparkled with emotion. This was more than a grand opening, it was the culmination of years of struggle and triumph. The gallery, once a place where he had felt diminished, now stood as a testament to resilience and transformation. Michael takes over. The transition from the Beaumont Gallery to the Carter Gallery had been swift yet deliberate. Michael had wasted no time in reimagining the space to align with his vision. He hired a team of diverse curators and art directors who shared his passion for uplifting underrepresented voices. Together, they revamped every aspect of the gallery, from its physical layout to its mission statement. The gallery's new name, prominently displayed on a sleek sign above the entrance, was paired with a tagline that read, "Art for every voice, every vision." It was a declaration of purpose and a promise to every artist and visitor who walked through its doors. Inside, the gallery was alive with energy. The inaugural exhibition, titled "We Rise Together," featured works from emerging artists who had previously struggled to find platforms. Bold, evocative pieces lined the walls, each one accompanied by a placard that not only described the work but also shared the artist's journey. It was a reminder that art was inseparable from the lives and experiences of its creators. Supporting emerging artists. For Michael, the heart of the gallery's mission was supporting artists who had been overlooked by traditional institutions. He established a mentorship program that paired emerging artists with established ones, providing guidance, resources, and exposure. He also created a residency program that offered studio space, materials, and stipends to promising talent, ensuring they could focus on their craft without financial strain. One of the first artists to benefit from these programs was Alicia Ramirez, a young Latina painter from the south side of Chicago. Her vibrant works, which explored themes of identity and belonging, had been ignored by galleries for years. Now, her pieces were prominently displayed in the Carter Gallery, drawing praise from critics and collectors alike. Another standout was James Okafor, a Nigerian sculptor whose intricate wood carvings told stories of migration, resilience, and cultural heritage. His work had been dismissed by other galleries as too niche, but under Michael's leadership, it became a centerpiece of the inaugural exhibition. "Michael Carter gave me a chance when no one else would," Alicia said during an interview at the gallery. "This isn't just a place to showcase art, it's a place that values who we are and what we have to say." Community impact. Beyond the artists, Michael's efforts extended to the surrounding community. He partnered with local schools and community centers to host workshops, art classes, and public talks. The gallery became a hub of activity, offering free events that brought people together to learn, create, and connect. Michael also launched a scholarship program to support aspiring young artists from marginalized backgrounds. Each year, a select group of students would receive funding for art supplies, mentorship, and college tuition. The first group of recipients included a high school student named Layla, whose dream of becoming an animator had seemed out of reach until Michael stepped in. The impact was immediate and profound. The gallery, once a symbol of exclusivity, became a beacon of possibility. Foot traffic in the neighborhood increased, benefiting local businesses. Art, which had once felt distant and inaccessible to many, became a shared experience that united the community. Confronting Beaumont. Despite the whirlwind of progress, Michael knew there was one conversation he had to have. Charles Beaumont, the former gallery owner, had retreated into the background after the sale. But Michael had invited him to the gallery's grand opening, and to his surprise, Beaumont had accepted. Michael spotted him near the back of the gallery, standing stiffly in front of a mural that depicted a diverse group of people holding hands, their faces lifted toward the sky. Beaumont looked out of place in the lively crowd, his tailored suit and carefully combed hair a stark contrast to the vibrant energy around him. Michael approached him, his steps measured. "Charles," he said, extending a hand. "I'm glad you came." Beaumont hesitated, then shook his hand. "It's impressive," he said, gesturing vaguely at the room. "You've done a lot with the place." Michael studied him for a moment. "Can we talk?" The two men found a quiet corner of the gallery. Michael leaned against a small table, arms crossed, while Beaumont stood rigid, his expression guarded. "You once told me my work was pedestrian," Michael began, his tone even. "That I should try selling at street fairs. Do you remember that?" Beaumont sighed, his shoulders sagging. "I remember. And I won't deny it, I was wrong. About you, about your work, about a lot of things." Michael nodded, his face calm but serious. "Do you know why I bought this gallery? To prove me wrong?" Beaumont said, a hint of bitterness in his voice. "No," Michael said. "I bought it because I wanted to change what it stood for. I wanted it to be a place where people like me, people you once dismissed, could have a voice. And I wanted you to see that." Beaumont was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I grew up in a world where art was exclusive. A world where only certain people had the right to decide what was worth seeing. I didn't question it, I was part of it. But seeing what you've done here, it's made me realize how small that world was." Michael studied him, searching for sincerity. "Change isn't easy," he said finally. "But it's necessary. The art world needs to evolve, and people like you have a responsibility to make that happen." Beaumont nodded slowly. "I can't undo the past, Michael. But I can do better moving forward." Michael extended his hand again. "Then start here." Beaumont hesitated, then shook his hand firmly. It wasn't forgiveness, it was an acknowledgement of progress. A new beginning. As the evening wound down, Michael stood at the center of the gallery, watching the crowd. Artists mingled with visitors, children laughed as they admired colorful murals, and the community buzzed with life. This was more than he had ever dreamed of, and yet he knew it was only the beginning. The Carter Gallery wasn't just a gallery anymore, it was a movement, a testament to the power of perseverance, and a beacon of hope for those who had been overlooked. And as Michael looked out at the faces of the people around him, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was his legacy. This was his victory. Michael Carter stood in the center of the Carter Gallery of Vision and Diversity, watching as visitors flowed through the space, their eyes wide with wonder. The gallery was no longer just a place to display art, it had become a cultural hub, a movement, and a testament to the power of perseverance and purpose. Every wall, every corner, and every exhibit told a story of resilience, diversity, and creativity. Michael's vision. Under Michael's leadership, the gallery had evolved into a beacon of change. Its mission extended far beyond showcasing art. It was about challenging societal norms, amplifying underrepresented voices, and inspiring dialogue. Each exhibit was carefully curated to reflect pressing social issues: identity, inequality, climate change, and cultural heritage. The works weren't just beautiful, they were provocative, raw, and deeply moving. One of the gallery's most talked about exhibitions was titled Unseen, Unheard. It featured pieces from artists who had faced systemic barriers in their careers. Paintings, sculptures, photographs, and installations filled the space, each one paired with a narrative that told the artist's story. The exhibit drew record-breaking crowds and sparked conversations that extended far beyond the gallery's walls. Michael had also made it a priority to create a welcoming environment for all visitors. Admission was free, and the gallery hosted weekly events like artist talks, workshops, and community forums. The once exclusive space now thrived on inclusivity, attracting people from all walks of life. Changing the art world. Recognizing the importance of nurturing future talent, Michael launched the Carter Scholarship for emerging artists. The program provided funding, mentorship, and resources for young artists from marginalized backgrounds. It was Michael's way of ensuring that no aspiring artist would have to endure the struggles he had faced. The scholarship program quickly gained traction, attracting applications from around the world. Each year, a select group of recipients was chosen, their work celebrated in a special exhibit at the gallery. The first cohort included a diverse group of young talents: a transgender photographer documenting the lives of LGBTQ+ youth, an indigenous sculptor exploring themes of land and identity, and a teenage graffiti artist whose vibrant murals brought neglected urban spaces to life. In addition to the scholarship, Michael partnered with other galleries, museums, and art institutions to advocate for systemic change. He pushed for fair representation in exhibitions, equitable funding for artists, and the dismantling of biases that had long plagued the art world. His efforts earned him recognition as not just an artist but also a leader and change-maker. Michael's influence extended beyond the gallery. He became a sought-after speaker, delivering powerful talks at universities, conferences, and cultural events. His message was clear: art was not just about aesthetics, it was about storytelling, connection, and transformation. Beaumont's redemption arc. Meanwhile, Charles Beaumont, the gallery's former owner, watched these developments from the sidelines. After selling the gallery, he had quietly retired, unsure of his place in the rapidly changing art world. At first, he had struggled with feelings of bitterness and irrelevance. But as he followed Michael's journey and witnessed the impact of the Carter Gallery, he began to reflect on his own actions and prejudices. For years, Beaumont had operated within a narrow framework, perpetuating the exclusivity and elitism of the art world. He had dismissed artists like Michael not because they lacked talent, but because they didn't fit his idea of what an artist should be. Now, he saw the harm he had caused, not just to individuals, but to the art world as a whole. Determined to make amends, Beaumont began reaching out to artists and curators he had once overlooked. He started writing essays and giving interviews, candidly addressing the biases he had perpetuated and advocating for greater diversity in the arts. Though his words couldn't erase the past, they sparked important conversations and inspired others to examine their own biases. In time, Beaumont and Michael developed an unexpected rapport. They exchanged letters, then phone calls, and eventually met for coffee. Their conversations were honest and sometimes uncomfortable, but they were also productive. Beaumont listened, learned, and began using his platform to support the very changes he had once resisted. Michael's legacy. As the years went by, Michael's journey became a story that transcended the art world. It was featured in documentaries, books, and even a biographical film that won critical acclaim. But Michael remained humble, focused not on his fame but on the impact of his work. One day, during a celebration of the gallery's 10th anniversary, Michael stood before a packed crowd in the main exhibition hall. Behind him was a mural depicting a diverse group of artists, their faces illuminated by a golden light. The mural, titled "The Future We Build," had been created by one of the gallery's scholarship recipients. Michael addressed the crowd with his signature mix of warmth and determination. "This gallery started as a dream," he said. "But it became something much bigger than me. It became a place where people could see themselves, where their voices could be heard, where their stories could be told. And it's proof that when we lift each other up, we all rise." The crowd erupted into applause, but Michael's mind was already on the future. There was still so much work to be done. He envisioned expanding the gallery's programs, creating satellite spaces in underserved communities, and continuing to challenge the art world to be better, fairer, and more inclusive. For Michael, the Carter Gallery wasn't just a space, it was a legacy. It was a reminder that art could change the world, that voices long silenced could be amplified, and that even the most stubborn barriers could be broken. It was a story of resilience, transformation, and the enduring power of creativity. And it was a legacy that would inspire generations to come.